to the Writer Talks. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. Love indeed is the most powerful, poignant, and pernicious of all emotions. It is only apt to celebrate this emotion, the very essence of our being. So do celebrate it for sure. But pause for a moment. Celebrate it by yourself if you're single. After all, loving oneself is the most precious gift you could give to yourself. Celebrate it with a beloved, one worthy of your affection. Celebrate it with friends, with parents, the ones who love you and prioritize you. True love is true, is genuine, not wavering, not boring, not commitment phobic, and certainly not one seeking convenience. True love yearns and wants to be with you, not one that shuns you and strings you along. Definitely not one that lives with another and whispers love to you. Love with all your heart, but take care to love only that special one with a heart. As always, I quote my favorite bard from Stratford Upon Avon, William Shakespeare, and his sonnet 29. When in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate. Wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope. With what I most enjoy, contented least, yet in these thoughts, myself almost despising, haply I think on thee, and then my state, to the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered, such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with the kings. We all seek our beloved and their comfort in good times and especially in moments of strife and distress. Just a mere thought, word, or deed of that true beloved, that sweet love brings in wealth of peace and happiness, a completeness that would empower you to shrug off your despair and despondent state, one that would empower you to reject or trade places with anyone or for anything. So if indeed you are blessed with such a one, nurture and cherish that person. It is a rare fortune in this fickle, frivolous world that is set on convenience. Cherish your love for yourself, for the things that you love. Reaffirm your commitment to your well being, for all love and happiness stems from within. You can exude confidence, charm, positivity only if you feel that from within. My guest today is the multifaceted, resilient writer from the US, Michelle Faith Lucas, who lives by this dictum. Practicing what she preaches, this scientist turned spiritual healer and writer dedicated her work to herself, Michelle, in acknowledgement of the exemplary courage and resilience she displayed in her tumultuous life that eventually enabled her to find her niche and calling, that she is today able to guide distressed souls to peace, harmony, and spirituality. Michelle, after 14 years of research and dealing with analytical chemistry, after a near death experience, pivoted to being an author, speaker, a spiritual healer, enabling individuals to connect with their inner spirit to heal their lives. This is a scientist who has read the Bhagavad Gita and quotes from it with the same elan that she can while referring to Garcia Marquez. So without further ado, let's dive in and listen to this very engaging, metaphysical, resilient writer speak about life, love, betrayal, hope, and healing. But before that, please do like, share, and subscribe to the Writer Talks. Show your support by getting in more subscribers so that we can continue this literary engagement with brilliant writers from across the world. Do write in your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section. I hope you enjoy watching Michelle speak with me on the Writer Talks. Until next week, write, love yourself, stay happy, and remember to look within and take care of yourself, as answers lie within our own selves. Ahoy! Ahoy! Welcome to the Writer Talks, Michelle Faith Lucas.
I'm honored to be here, Asha.
Thank you. It's totally my pleasure. It's such a diverse background you have. You spent about 14 years in research, analytical chemistry, did a corporate
Yes.
job. Now you're a writer, speaker, spiritual healer. What a journey.
It has been quite a journey. Not necessarily an easy one, that's for sure, but
Right.
I am appreciative of every moment of it.
That's lovely. That's lovely. So how was your Christmas this year in the shadow of the pandemic? How
I worked all day.
you worked all day?
I worked all day. I had one call with my family, my daughter. So Christmas, I was here working and writing.
Good that at least you were writing. That's nice. That's the best part.
That's the best part, absolutely.
And I think somehow being alone is conducive to writing.
It is. I love it. I haven't had a problem with the COVID lockdown stuff. I do love my alone time. I cherish it.
True.
It's very peaceful for me, but I know for probably the vast majority of others, we are social beings. We are connectors. We aren't alone, right? So people need that touch. They need the connection. And I know it's been hard on so many people. My heart does go out to them for sure.
Right, you're right. Writers are notoriously reclusive or prefer alone time or alone time.
Okay. Yes.
Stay away.
Stay away.
Right.
Yes.
So
Somebody.
how would you describe this journey from a corporate job and being a scientist, former scientist, to now being a writer and a spiritual healer?
It's very simple. It's been one journey, one solid journey. And that journey has been, Michelle, are you going to be your authentic self or not? Are you going to trust in your authentic self or not? And how many times Michelle would go away from that and life would be a terrible struggle. Things that you could never imagine were happening in my life, just unbelievable struggles. I come back to myself, which writing is included in that. Everything would be peaceful. Then I would get a little, fearful, like I need the money, and I would venture out, learn some things, but venture away from myself and get kicked back again to be my authentic self. So really, the science journey I do appreciate, but I knew from a very young child who I was and what I wanted to do. There was probably 4 years old. I knew who I was. But life has a way, and society and culture has a way of shaming you or, right, pushing you a certain way. And so the first push that I recall that was significant for me was when I went off to college. And the idea of not looking smart. I had very high test scores in all science and physics and mathematics. So my family and everyone, even the college professors had me pushed, Michelle should go into medicine, Michelle should be a scientist. And I, it wasn't a struggle for me at the time because I could not imagine looking like I was incapable. I mean, it was all ego. So I signed up for psychology to be a psychology major so I could help people because in my heart, I knew I was here to help people. And as I'm going off to college and my parents get that note that their daughter's going to be a psychology major, they were embarrassed, very embarrassed. I thought it was quackery. And I was from a very small town, a lot of pressure about who I was to be. And so instead, out of shame, I changed my major to chemistry and math. And I knew. I knew in my heart, but there was no stopping my brain at that time. There was no stopping because of the potential embarrassment and the shame around not looking like I was capable in the world that others had created. I still wanted to write this one book. And the title of it is How to Get Fired from Someone Else's Dream Job.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So that was the first. And how I went in, I worked as an analytical chemist. And really, the moment I gave birth to my son, the second I gave birth to him, it was like the sky parted, the seas parted. It was like, what am I doing? I had so much love for my son. And it was like something hormonal hit that I just could care less about chemistry, what anybody thought of me. That very second. So I quit. After my maternity leave, I was going back, and I didn't. And I immediately started teaching to have a little income. I immediately started teaching what I knew. And that was from my psychic abilities since I was born. So I started teaching psychic development because I believe everyone is psychic. I think it's a natural, inherent part of ourselves. That's why we dream. Right. Part of the images. We're connected to everything. So sometimes we actually take on other people's stuff. Okay. And so I really taught it to help people preserve themselves, become self-contained, to heal themselves, their lives. So I taught meditation, Taoist yoga, which really was about uniting. And I did that until my kids were at the age where they were very, very expensive. Right? And that was my love. And all those years I wrote and wrote and wrote. And every class I had another journal, another little book that I didn't publish, but to hand out, to teach them. Okay? So I collected all of these. And then when things financially was just too hard with these two kids that I wanted to do everything for, I took a job in the corporate world as a researcher. And
Go ahead, please.
So in that, the moment I walked in on my first day of the job, I grabbed a handle and I looked up to the sky, whatever that means. But I looked at the sky and I said, how in the world are you going to get me out of here? My first day of the job, knowing in my heart that's not what I came to do. Right. And so my goal was, okay, on my little time off or weekends, I would take all of the books that I had and I'd put them together in a collection for one big book. And actually what happened, I started having to write technical journals, I wrote patent strategies, everything for this company. And so instead of using my inherent writing skills, I was using all the technical. And I should back up for just 1 second, because one of the most eye-opening stories of my journey has been when I was 18 and I was in college as a chemistry major. It was very, very challenging. You're constantly studying, constantly doing labs. And you had to take the standard English class. And about halfway through that semester, my freshman year, I guess it was the second semester, I had a break with chemistry for some weird reason. I had a break. I didn't have another exam for 3 weeks, but I had this English paper I had to write. And I had to write a story about a story they gave us. And they gave us this story that to me was obvious. It was just so obvious. Sorry, I'm going to get dry. And so the story they gave us was about a little Jewish boy
Mhm.
He was a punk. He challenged everyone, this little Jewish boy. And people kind of roughed him up, and he'd rough them back up with his words.
Mhm.
And then one day on the playground, he gets pushed. His hands hit something. He comes up, and his palms are bleeding. So I wrote a paper about this kid being Jesus. They tried to expel me from college.
Oh gosh.
They said there's no way that an 18-year-old could write like that, and there was no way an 18-year-old could figure that out. Well, that's how my mind worked, as being always in the spiritual world. That's how my mind worked, And I never, ever once thought of it as a compliment. I never once thought of it as, oh, I should be thinking about writing because that's what I really love. Instead, my ego just imploded. Like, I went from hope to absolute despair. And it went for months. They tried to expel me from college. At the end, the professor threw my papers at me with a big A+ in my face to be mean. And I went from like the straight A, very clean and narrow, to going out to the bars every night. That was my way to react to that. Instead of listening to, no, this is a positive, I took it as a huge negative.
Right.
So I didn't really get to write in the corporate world, except I kept putting those journals together, and I put it together in a book called Creating Forward. And I thought I was going to publish that. But then my life just, things got really, 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 really hard. And I kept having illness and injury. And my stress was so high because, I was working 100 hours per week, 100 hours, easy. There were times 120 hours. And I got shingles in my eyeball. And I had this very, very peculiar series of dreams at night. And every dream there would be somebody there saying, jump. They would say, jump, Michelle, we will catch you. And they said it over it in all different formats in these dreams. And one day my daughter was just so upset with all the pain I was going through, and the shingles was just terrible. The pain was unbelievable. And she said, Mom, there's a woman like you. She loves to travel and she loves to write. And I want you to read her book because you're supposed to be writing books. And so she gave me Eat, Pray, Love. And I love to travel, so that was it. Love to travel. And so the moment my daughter gave that to me, and she actually took me to the movie with my eyeball was so swollen, I had to
Oh gosh.
catch it up. It was like a baseball bat to the head. I had no place else to go, Asha. I had gone as far as I could. Stress level as high as could be. I had a huge betrayal in my relationship. I'm really working. Everything I do, all the writing I do is for this company. Everything I do is for that. I can barely see my kids. And I am traveling everywhere, but some places fun in Europe, some places not. And I had no place else to go. And I sat down and I decided to write my journey out, not my old journey, but my journey out of that consciousness that kept me from being who I was, that kept me enslaved to the corporate world. Then I sat down, I had a blank journal, and the first thing I wrote, I decided I was going to dedicate this book to myself.
Right.
And I wrote, to Michelle, if you only knew how this story ended, you wouldn't waste one moment in darkness. And that was it. I wrote Elephants Never Lie sitting on the, literally, I taped.
Right.
And all I did was write my pain. Pain, 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 until I could figure out what was wrong that kept me in that. And the writing is what got me out of it. And I thought I was going to publish Creating Forward first, and I didn't. I published Elephants Never Lie first.
Right. Okay. So how did Elephants Never Lie come about?
That moment on the couch with the shingles, the pain, it was that, that was not planned. That was not planned. It was in absolute utter pain. I decided to write myself out of despair.
Right.
And the only reason that it says it's fiction on the back is because, one, there are parts that would be very hard for the majority of people to ever believe.
Sure.
And two, I changed just a little bit enough to not make my parents, my kids all know, but my parents, because of their deep Christian values, their deep culture of, things are one way. There's a God out there and there's us, and that's it. There's black and white. Well, there's not, right?
Right.
And I knew they couldn't handle it if they ever found it. And I didn't want them to even find it, but they did immediately. Immediately. But that's why it says fiction on the back. Even though I've been writing all this other stuff, this was my way to release and figure out, how in the world do you leave a job that's killing you, literally killing you,
right,
a relationship that's just broken your heart to pieces? How do you mend all of that when you have 2 children who need you? They're going off to college, expensive colleges, very expensive. It's going to be $80,000 a year for their college. I mean, to me, a mother, at least me, I would not do that to them. I wanted to support them. But my life was killing me. It was just not my authentic being. I was giving myself away to fakeness. I was giving myself away to this Wall Street, definitely Wall Street.
Right.
Giving myself away to these ideas, really, of lying to consumers. All of this stuff they tell people it's good for them, it's not. It was a huge weight on me. It was against who I was. And I didn't know what to do. So Elephants Never Lie. The elephant was my shadow that was keeping me from trusting. And to skip way forward, when I jumped, I literally one day walked out without any extra money. Done. No paycheck coming in. One kid off in college, next one going. And 2 weeks later, after I jumped off, everything fell into place. My life totally shifted. My daughter got a full ride scholarship to college, plus extra money. So she got paid to go to college. My son decides to go to a cheaper college, and his father says, because we were separated at that time, he said, I will pay for Dakota so that you can move to Sedona like you want. And I mean, on top of that, my daughter thought she was going to Tennessee, and she got a full ride scholarship to Arizona, where I was wanting to move. It was unbelievable in 2 weeks. And my life has been like that ever since. Very light, bright, happy, no illnesses, no injuries, no shingles.
That's right. That's lovely. And what a fantastic, dreamy transformation. Not many people are that lucky.
I think I had to go through it to show people,
Right.
It's all here. We know.
Right.
It's in our hearts. And I think a lot of writers, that's where it comes from. The knowing isn't up here. It's born through them.
Very true. In fact, I was talking to another writer just a couple of days back, and then he was quoting Hemingway and said how you sit before the typewriter and you actually bleed. So I think that's what goes into writing.
I love, yes, I agree, Asha. I totally agree.
Do you think it's essential to go through this kind of turmoil, this kind of hardship to really discover yourself, discover who you are, channelize yourself into the right direction?
It's not necessary at all. I had a near-death experience in 1999.
Right.
So I left my body. I died of a diabetic attack.
Right.
And it was one of the key things that was shown to me, that all suffering is created by human consciousness. It's not necessary, no. What's happening is there's such these walls created by culture, anger, hate, believing in being separate from each other, trying to push somebody into an identity that they're not. It's truly a wall. It's a wall of energy. I call it the shadow. And I saw that in my near-death experience. So every time we move into that, something that we're not, we have to get out of it. And it hurts when we get out of it. I just hope everyone who's like me in that they're here to show people that it's really true that you have a purpose. Everything's right here in the heart. It blossoms out of you. You don't have to worry. You just trust and be you. And that the universe just literally shows up for you.
Right.
For me, no, it's never necessary. But if that helps even just one person shift their life to freedom, then my life's worth it.
Right. Fair enough. So this tells me that there is a lot of need for human beings, for all of us, to introspect, to look within, to be able to understand, grasp what's going on within your own self, to be able to understand and get to that realm where you realize what's your true calling, what's your mission in life, as you're speaking about it. Now, everybody is so busy and they're jumping from one space to another, trying to be what they are not, straddling multiple things. I think this multitasking is the worst thing that one can do. So
I agree.
How do they break that pattern?
That pattern is called a distraction. They have created it, not just individually, but as a group. We have created it as a distraction to looking at who we really are. Because when we look at who we really are, it's a lot of layers and it's like, whoa. And especially if you've distracted yourself for decades and decades, right? And you wake up and realize you didn't need to do it when you're 105, right? How do you go back? So there's a lot of fear to even do it. So why not just keep running? So what I tell people, it's simple. It's your distraction. You want to distract yourself from it. You don't have to do it. You don't have to find yourself if you don't want to. You're loved. You're perfect the way you are. However, if you really want to find your power, it's in here. It's you. There's only one you in the entire universe. There'll never be another being like you. And in that is a specific power inherent in that knowing that it's like an idea being born from the divine. And that in itself is a power. And if you want to tap into it so you can touch more people, have more experiences, feel lighter, freer, then just decide that you're not going to put distractions in your life.
That's true. I think eventually it's the choice that you make, right? And you're only answerable to your own self, and it's the individual that you are that you need to be true to.
Perfectly, yes. Perfectly said, Asha.
Right, thank you. Now, I read that you trained under master from Lemuria, Ochia. Am I getting his name right?
Ochia, yes.
Ochia, right. Okay.
That's
now,
very interesting.
You're so deeply interested in spirituality. Have you read spirituality in Hinduism? Because Hinduism embodies a lot of that. Or in other Asian cultures, have you dabbled in that?
I have done, I have two answers to that. Almost zero, because I'm not supposed to, I'll read creative writing, but the reason I don't read spirituality is I'm not supposed to. There's something, just like everyone, there's something in here that they've taught me. That's my message. I can't be clouded up. However, there is one that goes beyond anything, and I read it on a weekly basis, and that's the Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, you do? That's lovely.
After I wrote Creating Forward, Wochia and the spirits told me to get the Bhagavad Gita because they said everything I wrote goes right along with the Bhagavad Gita. And so when I do a seminar, I always invoke the Bhagavad Gita. I bring something to the forefront. Like I can see how like it goes through our dimensions, or what you can call chakras. Like it starts at the beginning where Arjuna is dejected in his chariot. That's our mind. And how to rise up, and that to me, it really strikes beautiful chords. And the spirits have told me, that's it. If you want to really get somebody connected, you just invoke the Bhagavad Gita, nothing else. And so that's what I do.
It's lovely. And I think the beauty of it, the essence of the Gita, is the fact that it is so very practical. It's all about the way you act, the way you behave.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the other thing I should say about spirituality. It's so important is that it is not being separate, like kind of I was as a child. It's about being here. It's about our souls being in our bodies, being present for others, showing up, giving when it is to give, being self-sustained when it is being self-sustained, honoring another's path, but not being a part of it when it's hurtful, But it's about being here and our humanness, elevating that to a higher level. So I'm not one of these people who say, no, just go pray all the time, meditate all the time, go be out of your body, la, 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 la. No. Be here, be now, show up, show kindness, love, be present.
Right. So what you write comes so much from a personal space, from personal experiences. Is it possible to bear in mind a target audience when you write such things?
That is such a good question. And I know my target audience because they came to my classes for so many years. Largely women. Largely women who have been held down. I had a lot of clients that would come to me who they were in terrible situations and they had no idea they were in bad situations. Like their spouse or parents had been very abusive, but they never spoke it like that. And they would just bring up, something that was happening, and it was so horrific, very abusive. And so they didn't know why they were coming to my classes, but they got awakened just a little bit by little bit, and they're searching, and they're at a point where they know it's inside, but they just need a little help guiding, guidance there. And yes, I do have to keep them in mind very much because so many of them are so repressed, Asha. And I don't ever want to come off as an ego, but sometimes it's hard and you want to be able to touch them without hurting them. or making them feel like it's too late or they've been doing something wrong. But I always have them in mind. Always. I had so many clients like that, and they would come to me with serious diseases. I remember a lady, she was giving birth to twins and found out that one of them had died. And that is what made her even think about coming to my stuff. She had never even thought about it, but the loss of one, and then they were wrong, and it was the other. It was a very unbelievably hard, journey for her. So she stayed as a client of mine because she got a little solace, a little more acceptance and peace. And so people who are searching, and even if it's that they need more money, they need their medicine, they need food, they need to put food on the table, it's there. It's here. This earth has everything we need. So it's about using our truth, our spiritual force to get that help to them.
Right.
And for them at the same time to open up and trust to receive.
Fair enough.
And so, I always have them in mind. I care deeply about them.
Right. Tell me something about something more about Elephants Never Lie. It's such a unique title. How did you think of this? What was the reason behind the choice of the title?
I didn't. Towards the very end of writing the book, I was given to it in a dream. I literally was handed in a dream a piece of paper. Because I thought this book was actually going to be called Creating Forward. That's what I thought this book was. Even though I had the other stuff, this is the one. And as I'm writing it, and you can read in there, I'm saying this book called Creating Forward. And then I'm almost done with the book, and in my dream, this woman comes to me, hands me a piece of paper, and she says, "Give them this book." That was it. And on the piece of paper, it said, "Why elephants never lie." And I cut out the why, probably shouldn't have, but it said, "Why elephants never lie." And I got it. I got what she meant in that dream. And the elephant is what we don't talk about. It's the shadow. It's all that stuff that's not us, not our truth, and it holds us down and back. And they never lie. Because you know why? They're painted on the canvas of our lives. Whatever that shadow is, whatever that is that's not us, it's shown to us, like through me, as an extremely stressful job, broken relationships, whatever. And that's, the cover is an elephant painting my face. I just didn't have another face to put on there, honestly, and in black and white.
Right.
Because even though the world's in color, my life was not being my authentic self, and I wasn't eliciting my power. I wasn't staying in touch with my power. Instead, I let the shadow take over. So what was becoming my life? The shadow. Everything black and white. And even though the elephant has all the colors and the paint, my life was black and white. And at the end, I'm not.
Right. That's such a very interesting. Wow, it's so overwhelming and it's so very interesting as to how you thought of the title. Very engaging indeed. Right. Would you like to read your favorite section from the book for us?
There are three sections.
Right.
The first one was when I was on the couch with shingles in my eye.
Ah, okay.
And I asked myself, did I determine this destination, or was it determined for me? Today I begin. I must awaken from this damaging consciousness. Today, A new story begins as I write myself out of this filthy graffiti hole. An inner wealth of happiness must be possible, as the spirits have shown me so. I hope for a triumph at the end. This story is destined to end in glory, as love is the destination of all. But today, I am only a defeated shell of existence. The yoke was removed long ago. This is my story, and this is my journal. A journal so used that the letters R.E.B. are all that remain on the cover. I have been writing it for decades, the same story over and over, with different characters but the same results. I held on to it in hopes of one day writing a good ending. And today, I have nowhere else to turn but to do something different. It makes me cry. Instead of letting my life happen and reading about it later, I will write myself out of this deep despair. I only know my story as it is compelled onto pages, and I know how I must start. This is my unleashing of the abyss of my feelings and the cliffs that I reach through a subtle sense of knowing. In the depths of my love and my longings I sway, trying to connect past to present, cause to effect, God to life. Everything is present at once, and there are no bounds when emotion flows.
Thank you.
I never edited that. That was sitting on the couch, and I wrote that in probably 3 minutes. Because that's how I felt. That's what was really happening.
Thank you. That was really, really, really awesome.
Thank you.
Really striking.
It brings a lot of emotion because it's unbelievable, how much my life changed, and I'm so grateful. But I was in very serious pain. Like I wasn't sure if I would make it out alive.
Absolutely. Listening to you read that, I can truly understand how cathartic it must have been to finish writing the book.
Beautiful experience. I wasn't allowed to leave work. No one was allowed to leave work for 6 months.
Right.
6 months. We were on the biggest project in the corporation. We had no vacation. I was working 28 days straight and then 2 days off. And one night I said to myself, Michelle, you should do something for yourself. If you could do anything, what would you do? And I said, go to Bali. So I booked my ticket. I didn't care. And what was absolutely amazing is how the universe works for everyone, but people don't believe it. If they believe it, it'll happen.
Absolutely.
So 2 months later, I'm supposed to leave for Bali. I can't tell anyone. I can't tell my bosses. No one. And I know, I'm going to get fired because I'm leaving for a month, by the way, a whole month. So I'm going to get fired. That's a way to push me out. But instead, what happened was the machinery that we were working on totally broke down. It completely broke down. And they brought this team in on the exact day that I was leaving to Bali. The exact day. The team came in from France. Hello, hi, They said, we'll be here 1 week. You can go home for 1 week. Don't get on the computer. Don't work. Just everybody relax. 1 week. Well, I swear to you, Pasha, I was gone a whole month. The very day I got back was the day they got it fixed. And as I'm walking in, the people from France are walking out. Oh, bye, bye. No one knew I was gone.
Oh, wow. That's unbelievable.
And I finished the book in Bali.
That's brilliant. I also read that there are 2 more in the series, isn't it? And it says that one of them is based on, it's based on 2 women. One of them is based on a woman who's battling depression and the other one who's battling learning disabilities. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is correct. The next one is a lady who's had lifelong depression. And this one goes back and forth, chapter to chapter, past life, this life, past life, this life, where I'm showing her like once you put yourself in a mental prison, it stays with you even through lifetime. And it's just an energy, and it's how to break out of it. And she's done a great job with her and her family trying to deal with the depression, as you can imagine. She's in middle age now with children and all that. That one will come out in the first half of 2021. And then the second one is another woman who always battled learning disability. And they did everything because she couldn't learn, right? And so she got shoved aside. She got pushed kind of into a marriage where she was terribly abused because she was stupid. She was stupid. And the spiral just kept going. And at some point when the abuse was so bad, you know what she did? For some reason, she decided to take a test. Some type of IQ kind of test.
Right.
And she scored in like high functioning. And she realized that there's this scale of kids out there everywhere who are very high functioning, so much so your standard person, parent, teacher, doesn't understand it and thinks there's a problem. They're autistic, right? So her journey, she has her own business and she goes to schools and sets up teaching facilities for these kinds of kids who are actually super high functioning but have been put down and repressed. So that will be the third Elephants Never Lie, 2022.
Wow, that sounds so interesting and so inspirational again. It's lovely.
Thank you, Asha.
What has been the best compliment that you've got so far as a writer and as a speaker? Something that you really cherish and that says, oh, this is the reason why I'm a writer.
Oh, thank you. That's a good question. The best compliment, I have a lot actually lining this wall back here. Every letter I ever get, I put up. I'm trying to think which one. The first thing that came to mind was when I taught people to firewalk. Mm-hmm. And all these people showed up who would never firewalk. They were going to save all their friends, but they all walked. And I'd been writing this stuff for a long time. And one of the men afterwards, when he came up and he said, everything you've written, everything I've read, I just thought it was just for you. I didn't really know to believe it. And he said, I really went to a different place. And now, since Elephants Never Lie, the amount of people who said the similar words, like, you took me to a different place, those words are words that were in my head when I was in that terrible marriage. For the women, those words I would never say. But you got into my head, all those years of being repressed and held down, and the feeling and the fear and the anger, and you said them for me, and then you escorted me out into an enlightenment and gave me hope. And I've gotten that from quite a few people. That's nice. That's what makes me want to continue putting my writing out there.
Fantastic. That's so lovely. So touching.
Well, thank you, Asha.
Right. So, who are your favorite writers, and what are you reading currently?
I have several indie author books that I'm like trying to get out. I've been so busy. Unfortunately, I will say that there's an indie author, Kenny Down, who has a great social justice book, and I have just finished that.
Okay.
And that is, oh my gosh, Darko. I can't even think, but very good on social justice and spirituality and merging the two. My favorite authors, really Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist.
Right.
Of course, I used to absolutely be. I still have all my Anne Rice books out in the living room, but I won't bring them into my writing room.
Okay.
Stephen King used to be up. I don't go into the horror anymore. Like, I don't want that as a part of my vibration.
Right.
Names. And so there's Garcia Marquez.
Oh, Marquez. Right. Absolutely.
100 Years of Solitude.
Right.
It's my favorite book.
I know
I can read that over.
He's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. Yes. I love the kind of flowy, poetry mixed in with feeling and it's, the different worlds, multidimensional.
Absolutely.
That's what I love.
Yeah, it's almost like he's doing a dance with the words. He's doing a lovely twirl with the words.
He is. Yes. Yes, he is. There is one passage in there that I actually read sometimes at my events. And it does it. It's sitting over there. I'm thinking, oh, where is it? It's when the female, she's taking a bath in front of these men. Remember this? And the one ends up falling and he dies. You read that passage. I read it to a group of people. They're completely transported into that world. 100%. They're there. And then when I'm done, because the last sentence is, he's dead. You already died. Right? He's killed. Then they're shaken back out. I close the book and they're like, oh, they're shaken back out. And I said, see, there are other worlds. And there are other worlds that you're creating with your emotions and your beliefs. I just transported you out of your own pain into this story, but you do the same thing by connecting yourself to people and ideas that aren't good for you. So you go into another world and you have to always be drawn back. But that passage really proves it because it just pulls you right in.
Oh, that's such a lovely practical way of demonstrating how. Wow,
Yeah.
that's splendid.
He's a writer.
Absolutely, that's perfect actually. So
Right.
So, any special message to viewers of the Writer Talks?
It's to the Writer's Talk.
Right.
That I honor you, that I appreciate you being here, having me on. That when a writer talks, really, it is a combination. It's when the brain and the heart align, right? Something's born out of them. They're put it on paper. And then whoever that is, that character, that environment, that whatever, they start talking to you, right? The character starts talking.
Absolutely.
So you've created another world, and then that world starts creating it for you.
True.
And so my message with the Writer Talks is it's so important to continue that creativity. It's the only thing that's happening in the universe is expansion. I saw that in my near-death experience. It's only expansion. So the authentic self is being born. So every time a writer puts that on paper, they're literally going with the flow of the only thing that's happening in the universe. And they're letting those characters then tell a story.
Right.
And it's so important for others to pick this up and read, because if they have not yet put into words what they've experienced, they're going to find it through an author that calls to their heart every time. Is that what you're asking?
Absolutely, that's what I was asking. Thank you so much for that. It was really an experience, lovely experience talking to you, and thank you for being on the Writer Talks.
Oh, I am very honored. It was wonderful meeting you, Asha.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.